Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison, and I want to welcome you to this session of Humanity Rising. As we convene a 5-day program on forgiveness in a time of duress. Last week, we convened a 5-day program on strategies of resistance in a time of Trump. And we wanted to follow it with something that goes to the deepest level of our humanity. And that is to contemplate the question of the meaning of forgiveness in the face of great criminality. Are there acts that are unforgivable? What is the scope of forgiveness? How do we even begin to approach it? I want to honor this day, which is the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz on January 27th, 1945, by Russian troops who came upon Auschwitz, and many of the photographs that we've all seen come from that liberation moment. And over the decades, this day has come to be remembered as Holocaust Memorial Day. In honor of this, I want to tell the story that Simon Wiesenthal told me, who I was deeply, deeply privileged to meet during my State of the World Forum days back in the late 1990s. Simon Wiesenthal, you may know, was the great Nazi hunter. He helped bring in Adolf Eichmann. He helped track Joseph Mengele, the doctor of Auschwitz. Many of you know Adolf Eichmann was really presided over the operations. He was the chief operating officer of the Holocaust and escaped after hiding in Austria for 5 years after the war. He escaped in 1950 to South America. And Simon Wiesenthal, who had endured from 1941 as a Austrian Jew till May of 1945. He was in one concentration camp after another. He was on several death marches where they literally marched people to death. And after the war, he dedicated his life's energy to bringing these people who had perpetrated that crime to justice. He tells a story that's recorded in his master book, The Sunflower, that in 1943, he was at one of the camps that he'd been assigned to, and he was in labor gang, and he was seconded one day to work to get rid of medical trash at a German medical facility for soldiers. As he was walking up the road, guarded by the SS troops to the camp, they passed a cemetery for German soldiers. And on top of each of the graves was a sunflower. And he thought, I wonder if I died, whether I'd at least get a sunflower. He was brought into the camp, and a nurse orderly said to him, I need to take you to one of the rooms. And Wiesenthal thought he was going to be taken away and shot. And what he found instead was a mortally wounded young German soldier named Carl Seidel, 21 years old, dying. And he'd requested that the nurse find a Jew. And as fates decreed it, it was Simon Wiesenthal. And the young man said, I just need to talk to a Jew because I committed unspeakable crimes. And I want you to forgive me. I was part of the Hitler Youth. I joined the SS. I believed in the Third Reich. And then we began to engage in atrocities of unspeakable horror. And the one atrocity that he had to tell Wiesenthal was an event a year previous where they'd come upon a village and they rounded up all the Jews, some 300 men, women, and children, pressed them into a building, set it on fire. And some of the Jews went up to the upper stairs, and when it was being engulfed in flame because they chained the doors, locked the doors, they began to jump out of the windows. And Carl Seidel and the other troops shot them down before they hit the ground. Some of them were babies. And he said, I need you to forgive me for what I've done. Simon Wiesenthal was speechless and didn't say a word. And he left. Came back the next day, and the nurse orderly told him that Carl Seidel had died during the night, having at least had the opportunity to ask for forgiveness, and that he wanted his clothes and his belongings to go to Simon Wiesenthal. Wiesenthal refused. He said that they should go to Carl's mother. But that experience was like an irritant in the oyster in Simon Wiesenthal's mind. And he began, even as he was still in the concentration camp, to ponder, can I forgive these people for what they've done? And he never could answer the question, but he wrote the book laying out what had happened and inviting originally 10 when the book was first brought out, but eventually 53 people, including the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu and Marcuse, the great French philosopher, and various other Jewish intellectuals of the day, Christian theologians, ethicists, doctors. Would you have forgiven Carl Seidel for what he did? And the book is well worth reading. One of the most powerful books I've ever read. Because there's no easy answer to a question like this. It's easy to forgive if you've been slighted or you've been hit on the playground. But against the enormity of the Holocaust, as St. Paul says in the book of Romans, there is such a thing as an unforgivable sin. The sin against the Spirit, he says. So as we open this week of forgiveness in a time of duress, let us remember two things. One, the question we are going to ponder has been pondered by people far greater than ourselves in the face of horrors far deeper. Number two, the answer that each of us brings to this question, even if it's tentative, says as much about who we are in our moral development than it says about the actual question that is being answered. It's a Rorschach test. It reveals who we are. It doesn't make us what we are. So thank you, everyone, for joining us here on Humanity Rising. What an unbelievably exciting and deep and layered and textured question to ponder at this time.